To discuss financing urban agriculture, here's the USDA Deputy Undersecretary for Rural Development, Lillian Salerno. Farm Director and co-founder of Uptop Acres, Christoph Greena. Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder of Aero Farms, Mark Oshima. And panel moderator, Kathleen Merrigan.
What can I say? Money, money, money. Need some money. We need some money to get this urban ag stuff rocking and rolling. Yeah? Let's talk about what sources of monies, what are the struggles, what have been the pathways that you've seen people take. I'm going to start with you, Lillian.
Sure. I work for a big federal agency called the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We are historically a field-based agency with thousands of employees and offices out in the rural space. So urban ag is a different animal for us. And we've been doing a lot of work, a lot of it based on the work you started with Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food, where folks from different agencies finally get together and say, hey, it's coming, urban ag. What can we do to align our programs? And it's very challenging. So from a business and industry standpoint, we have loan programs, we have some small grant programs where we've had to really do really wide interpretation of how we can address urban ag. So for example, company, Clyde Farms in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, took out a $6.3 million business and industry loan, which allows them, it's a guaranteed loan. They're not in a rural space, but because they're ag, we're able to do it. And the way we're able to do that is we know that some of their products that they grow are going into help other low-income folks in persistent poverty counties and that kind of stuff. So we have to give it like a twist in order to make it fit into urban ag. Some of our field-based agencies aren't lined up to address urban ag.
Now, I know you probably have other things to say, but I just want to decode what a loan guarantee is. We can't presume that everybody knows that sort of stuff. So explain.
Sure. So we're like a development bank, a lot of parts of USDA. We guarantee banks. The government comes in and guarantees so a bank can give that loan. So in the rural part of this country, which is about almost 50 million people, there's a lot of lack of access to capital. So the Department of Agriculture, as well as the Small Business Administration, goes in and guarantees loans. So a small business or small ag producer goes into the bank, and as long as they put together their business program or business plan, then the bank's able to take more risk because the government will go and guarantee it from 60% up to 90% based on if something fails. Therefore, they have more access to capital in rural spaces.
Okay, thanks. And so this business and industry loan guarantee program that you have, which historically had been used in the rural areas, now is open for business for local ag.
Correct. And most people don't know about it, is the other thing. So a city business, unless they had some other knowledge, they wouldn't know that they could come to us for that.
And it's a pretty big program?
Right. It's about $1 billion a year from us.
That's real money.
Yeah. So it's good. It's some of the best money in government that you can get. So that's a loan program. And then we have these value-added producer grants, which some people know about, but a lot of folks in urban don't know about. But it's basically a grant program. And during the Obama administration, we've issued about almost $140 million worth of value-added producer grants. And those are for producers who come up with a feasibility plan or some kind of way to help increase their yield, or their, turning tomatoes into salsa, or to create an export plan where we come in and we give grants so that they can grow their businesses. And that's something which a lot of folks and a lot of activists and advocates around have done a lot of good work to make sure that that's a robust program. And that's some really good use of government grant money.
Now, I love USDA. It's my favorite department of government, obviously. But when Eleanor Starmer, the administrator of AMS, was here earlier, she mentioned that USDA is not the only game in town in the federal government in terms of assisting urban agriculture. She, among other things, she said she really talked about some of the resources that HUD has. Are there any other federal players you want to make sure the crowd knows about?
Sure. A couple of things. One is, for those of us that are business people, and I am one of them before I got to the government, and I feel like I'm less of a business person, but I try to be every day. But there's the Small Business Administration, which I just checked their numbers on the way over here to find out how much they had loaned for urban ag. And just in 2009, it was around $50 million of loans that they gave to urban ag, and in 2016, it was right at almost $100 million. So
wow,
that's the uptick.
Yeah.
And so those are, again, guaranteed loans where a business goes into they have pre-approved lenders to a lender that then allows the government to back up the loan. And then, of course, there's the Environmental Protection Agency has something that they work with USDA and CDC and other programs where it's called Local Food, Local Places, if those of you who may or may not know it. It's basically some technical assistance money that can go into cities and towns. We have really good examples where it's a 2-page application, so that's really attractive for communities, where they just put together what they need to sort of help drive that local food economy. And that's where you get some technical assistance money, and you don't have to pay it back, and it comes into a community and tries to connect all the dots so that they can grow the food economy. And a lot of that's in urban. And what we've seen is that really drives some urban opportunities for agriculture.
Christoph, you're trying to do this stuff in real time. What's been your experience chasing the money chasing you? What's going on out there from your perspective?
So I'm a co-founder of Uptop Acres and also a farmer. We are a rooftop farming company here in DC, and we operate on 4 rooftops throughout the metro area, mostly concentrated in downtown DC, and we have about an acre of space under production. We operate in a green roof system, so we're able to take advantage of food production, but also stormwater retention, which is a huge concern for cities around the country. So it's sort of a win-win in that situation. In terms of financing, I have 2 co-founders, and we've self-funded for a lot of the way. It's been tough to find financing sort of on our scale, getting started up, and there then are also a lot of barriers. I would say some of the complexities that we face are in sort of getting started and scaling up are the inefficiencies that we have from rooftops and sort of trying to create an industry. And we have to figure out the logistics of growing food on roofs, storing it, starting all of our transplants. We don't have all of that in one concentrated place. It's sort of at the beginning is a combination of ground and roof together. And I think that what's really important to us from a USDA perspective is reducing the barriers for small businesses to apply for these grants. It's first of all, you have to go through the process of getting approved, which for a small business owner who is already stretched to the limit takes a lot of time. And then once you get past that, just finding out if you're eligible for these grants can take 50 pages of reading, which is hours that we don't necessarily have. So streamlining that process would be super helpful to the small business person pressed for time. Microloans, we were sort of speaking about this a little bit, revolving microloans, something as little as, for a new urban agriculture business, something as little as $20,000 could start up a new half-acre farm for us on a rooftop in DC. And that's, that makes all the difference. It's huge. I think labor development is something that is really hard for us and was touched upon in the last 2 panels. We want to hire, we all grew up in DC. We all, we've spent all of our time here, but it's hard to find people who are from DC that have the training to hop on and run, be a farm manager for us. And so to have subsidies to actually spend time training these people before they're in a position where it's make or break. We need to get our deliveries out to these restaurants. If it's not done correctly, that's our business. Would be amazing. And then I think tax credits. This is done on a local level, but tax credits and incentives for property owners or developers to lease their land for urban agriculture. I think that. We are talking about financing and these huge developers. Urban ag is not something that they view as valuable to them from a financial standpoint. And I think that there are ways. DC is doing it on a local level, but I think there's opportunity from a federal level, whether it's through tax incentives for leasing land or for the donation of food. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. So.
Great, thanks. Now, Mark, I hear about your operation all the time. You guys are sort of a big name in a little space, in a way. Tell us a little bit about what's going on, and also give us some perspective on financing challenges.
Sure. So just a little bit of background about AeroFarms. We have been one of the pioneers and leaders for indoor vertical farming. So a little bit of a different approach. When we talk about urban agriculture, it's pretty broad, but encompassing. We're talking about growing specifically in converted warehouse spaces. And when we think about vertical farming, we're trying to think about vertical beds of growing stacked. And so our whole focus as a company is about how we enable local production at scale to have the right economies, to have the right economics to be able to compete with that field farmer. And it's not easy. We've been doing this since 2004. We started out in the Finger Lakes area of upstate New York, really a bed of agriculture. And our chief science officer, and that's one of the things that really differentiates us as a company. We have a chief science officer. We have a very science-driven approach. His background, he had been at Cornell, one of the top ag programs around, and his whole position there was to deploy technology to help farmers. And so we've always had that as a lens in terms of how do we leverage a new way of growing? It's the biology, it's the environment, it's data science. So just to give a little bit of sense, we've been doing this since 2004. We moved our headquarters down to Newark, New Jersey 2 years ago. We're in the process of just building out our 9th farm, which is going to be the world's largest indoor vertical farm. And to date, we've raised over $70 million between public and private. And it's been a partnership on the public side, but it's been zero money from the USDA. And so what we're excited about today and what we're excited about, we've been down in Washington over the years and talking and trying to raise awareness. These are exciting moments to help drive more awareness about what businesses can do and do it at scale and have the right economics behind this. And so we're talking about, for us, we have partners like Goldman Sachs and Prudential who've done the due diligence. They've looked at the operating history. They've looked and talked with our customers. They understand what the marketplace opportunity is. But we're looking for different programs. So you were talking about different federal programs. We've tapped into the Department of Treasury, the New Market Tax Credit Program. We've had to take a different approach in thinking about how do we drive economic development in some different ways. We've also, at the state level, have worked with New Jersey Grow. It's about job creation. We created, and we moved our headquarters to Newark, over 78 jobs. That was the goal. We're actually over 100 people today as an organization. We also worked with the ERG, and so economic redevelopment goals there. But we're finding in other states as well in terms of energy efficiency. But even at the federal level, Department of Energy, they have different types of programs that are really aligned with helping drive technology. So for example, a lot of the programs that were talked about just now, they often require a personal guarantee, right? And that's one of the things that can be really limiting, one of the barriers, I think, today. So as a opportunity we see in terms of driving technology and driving innovation, there's different ways of being catalysts, but we're a big believer in how public and private can come together here.
So you've raised $70 million over this period of time. Do you have a quick, short list for people who might be starting, sort of the do's and don'ts of dealing with venture capital? There's a lot of interest in the VC world in agriculture, both urban and rural. I think it's part of the wave of increased interest in food generally. And I'm sure you've had a foot in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, they're looking for a return profile, right? And so they want to understand, your business and really the operating metrics. So the fact that we've had history going back to 2004, understanding, our own operating. We've also been in OEM, an original equipment manufacturer. We've been in the business of actually selling our technology, empowering other farms in different markets throughout the U.S. as well as internationally. We've gone back to our roots as the farmer because in order to be good at technology, you need to be good at the farming. In order to be good at the farming, you need to be good at the technology. It's this symbiotic relationship. But it's that history that's given the investment partners the comfort level. It's the team. We talk about the organization. We talk about the capabilities. We have plant scientists. We have engineers. We have nutritionists. We have microbiologists on staff. It's about helping set a new standard for growing from seed to package. And that's one of the things that we think is a really important message around food safety and how we can help really drive innovation there. One of the earlier themes talked about earlier was around, can you do it at scale? Can you have the quality? And it's important in terms of our connection to the local, in terms of how we're addressing food deserts and being able to help increase access to healthier food. But from an innovation standpoint, think about in the field, seed development is typically a 7-year process. It's driven by the crops and the growing seasons. We can have up to 30 harvests a year. So just think about each one of those are learning opportunities. And we're harnessing data. Each one of our harvests has over 160,000 different data points. And so we're mining that and understanding how to have a better product more consistently and high quality, but it's helping lead to a different kind of product quality.
And I'm about to pull up questions, but I have one quickly for you, Christoph. So I understand you've been rethinking or thinking about LEED building standards and trying to find a way to, have potential businesses see this is good for my bottom line. Can you tell people what you've been up to on that?
Yeah. So, farming is one aspect of our business. And because we aren't hyper efficient like indoor vertical farming, we have to find different ways to sort of make up that difference. So while we are operating a commercial farm, we also operate an event space in conjunction with our roofs. We like to say that our roofs are all farms but also event spaces, and we also work with property owners and developers to think about green roofs, which are typically used for stormwater management, but think about how they could be used for food production too. And so we can help them reduce their cost of conforming to whatever stormwater regulations, but also whatever their goals are in terms of LEED or other sustainability requirements. And so we're trying to use agriculture as a wedge to change how we look at buildings in a built environment and how they're built and how they can be more efficient and how we can use them to produce more. And I think that's what we're using farming for. And so the face of our company is farmers, and we are farmers, but we're trying to deal with and take on a few other issues at the same time in that.
Okay, let's see what the audience has for questions here. Wow, got a lot of votes already. So Lillian, USDA, can they do anything to help recent grads with student loans get into farming? Loan deferral or forgiveness, ching ching. It's not exactly a rural development mission area, but it certainly is something that we think about when we have to transition our working lands with the age of farmers and ranchers in this country, close to 60. And we need to repopulate our food system.
Right. It's one of our, if you on a financial statement, when you go to invest, it usually has disclaimers and says, making sure that when you're investing that all these things are checked off. For us at USDA, our big disclaimer is we have a huge issue with the age of the farmer and the age of our workforce, and we have got to address it as quick as we can because it's not going to work out for us if we don't. So this is not our field because that's the Department of Education and probably the Banking Committee, but certainly there's a huge incentive and discussions at USDA and throughout the federal government to see what we can do to get more folks into rural spaces in this country, as well as in farming, both in urban and in rural spaces. I did want to attach to one issue that he said that I forgot to mention was we have the energy title, and under that we have, it's called the Rural Energy for America program, and for that you can be in urban or rural areas as long as you're in ag, and there's some grant money, but more loan money where when you're doing, lighting or, any kind of ways or filtration, we've done a lot of urban ag with our Rural Energy for America program, paying for, lighting and irrigation systems.
Right, and for those of you, sorry, just a sec, for those of you who are looking for more details on this sort of stuff, there are linkages in the Pigeonhole website, so you can get to some of this stuff. Excuse me, Mark.
I was just going to ask a quick question with the REAP program. Is that now, is there going to be opportunity for that to be geared towards new? Because right now it's just towards existing farms.
Well, I mean, that's certainly some of the changes one would want in a farm bill.
Farm bill, farm bill. Okay, here's a question for you. Is vertical farming, especially in converted warehouses, really viable and sustainable? How do you deal with lighting and cooling costs? That's a pretty common question.
Yeah, a couple things just in terms of AeroFarms. We are a mission-driven organization. We are very much focused on the economy, the circular economy and the environment. We're part of something called the Ellen MacArthur Foundation Circular Economy 100. It's about how you eliminate waste. So we're always looking at every part of our business. And so this is a way of growing that uses 95% less water, uses 50% less fertilizer, uses 0 pesticides. So those are some of the major inputs today that are challenging farming. We think about specifically how we grow and what we grow. So one of the things that makes it unique, we don't grow on soil, we actually grow on cloth. It's a reusable medium, and that's really environmentally friendly. And it's made out of 100% recycled plastic, so we're actually taking 24 water bottles out of the waste stream to create each yard of cloth that we use to grow. So there are a number of different things that we do from an environmental footprint and understanding. Even our packaging has 48% less packaging than the standard package out there. But specifically here, the question is on electricity. There's no question in terms of lighting. That is our biggest part of our cost of goods. But we're very efficient in terms of what we do with the LEDs and understanding, how do we target the right kind of spectrum and the right kind of frequency and what the lights actually need to have more effective photosynthesis. So there are things that we're doing there that can really optimize the plants and give the perfect growing environment, for them.
These are moving all the time. How do the financial challenges for entrepreneurs starting a farm in a city differ from those a rurally based farmer might experience? Well, there's a long list there, actually. First of all, a lot of your programs are not eligible at this point in time for an urban farmer.
And I'm so sympathetic with you going through our eligibility, requirements. But remember, it's a historical perspective from this country. And ag is that, most of it was in the rural space. And so we have in statutes and, that our dedicated career staff can't get around because it says you're only allowed to put this money into an area with less than 20,000 people or less than 50,000 people. And when you get outside of that, you cause issues. And so we're consistently trying to remedy that by, giving folks an opportunity to discuss with lawmakers and stuff these kind of challenges. But the eligibility piece is a real challenge, and we have to adapt with the need of the country for sure.
And I assume that based on what I pay for parking in the city, I'm just assuming that sometimes getting space in the city for production, you're repurposing warehouses. You're getting on a rooftop. We're going to have a panel later this afternoon on land-based urban ag, where people are reclaiming property and putting plants in the soil. But some cities' land access is extremely pricey. I would say that's a difference. I don't know if there are any others that you guys want to throw in.
Yeah, land definitely, really expensive. Not a lot of it in cities. Can be contaminated, so there are remediation costs to that, which just adds to the number. I'd say for us personally, just the logistics of getting started, because getting from your first couple farms, first couple roofs up to scale, where you have acres of rooftop space, is where we've had a lot of issues. Logistically, in the future, we hope that we're going to have cold storage, full greenhouses on each roof. So, but until we get there, we're taking our produce, taking it to a central cold storage facility that's on the ground. We're starting all of our seedlings on the ground in a greenhouse. So that is incredibly inefficient, and getting from inefficiency to efficiency is where we have a lot of issues, but we can get there with sort of small businesses. We don't need that much capital to get there, and so that's I really like to focus on those micro loans and micro grants. So just a small amount of cash infusion to a young urban agriculture company can make all the difference.
If I can have just two comments. One, also geared towards the Farm Bill, which is, again, when we think about language, if by just removing the one word rural and making it open so that it's just gives the legislation the opportunity to be able to give allocations, then that would be quite meaningful. But we know that's a pretty challenge with a lot of different interests, but that would be pretty powerful. The other thing is, I just want to also, people think, growing outdoors, there's a very romantic notion that, again, the land is free and we can just start growing. Salinas, an acre of property costs $60,000, right? And in order to start growing there, specifically for leafy greens, the estimation is that you need at least 1,000, if not 2,000, to have the right kind of scale. That's quite a significant investment just on the land alone. And so that's often lost in the equation when we think about, what are the choices. And that's why it's so important that, what we're doing in the urban and trying to bypass, what's there is going to be important.
And then I'd just add one more thing. You're talking about the cost of parking. I think that for really in dense urban areas, trying to incentivize property owners to lease their land or just consider another use for it, and that use being urban agriculture, can go a long way, incentivizing property owners with tax incentives to lease their land, or then even incentivize people who are looking to donate or fund urban agriculture ventures. There are a lot of sort of new ways that businesses are classifying, whether it's as B Corp or L3C, and I think that there are opportunities to look at how donors or financiers can be incentivized more too.
Okay, so this moves really fast, so I'm going to combine two questions and offer an answer. It was, what are the private philanthropists doing? And one was, are there any special pots of money that address social equity justice? And I will say, I know in the Sustainable Agriculture Funders Network, a lot of the foundations have been really focused in the last couple of years in their meetings and conversations about social equity, social justice, and what role they can play. So I think they're shifting some of their money to those areas. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that, or else I'll just move to another question, but I know that's something they're thinking about. So Senator Stabenow introduced the Urban Ag Act of 2016 this week. Woohoo! Does this bill do what needs to be done to jumpstart urban ag in the U.S.? What other financing pieces would you include? Now, I read that because it's a top voter, but I'm going to admit that I have only skimmed the bill because it is brand new. The summary of the legislation is on the Pigeonhole site, and we're really excited that she's done so. Has anyone consumed all the legislation yet?
No, we were looking for the text, but we looked at, obviously, the headlines. One thing that was exciting was that actually the word vertical farming was included, and that's part of a building block process here to make sure that, again, all the different options are at the table.
Right, and we'll have a session this afternoon with Senator Stabenow's staff person, and she has a video message for us to say, all scattered from town. Okay, crop insurance, hugely important for rural agriculture. Do urban farmers have access to crop insurance? What safety net exists for small urban farms? Well, that's a fascinating question. Well, we're just going to say that's a good question. We've got to figure out the answers to this one.
Yeah, I would say that there needs to be more access to it. I mean, we've had, our situation is even more complicated because we're operating in DC with a long history of being disenfranchised in terms of our voting and sort of citizenship. So oddly enough for us, there are other rooftop farming companies. One, I think Brooklyn Grange is going to be here later, but they've helped mentor us a little, and they had a sort of a standard New York ag crop insurance. And when we went to try to find agricultural crop insurance, thing didn't exist in DC because we're not a state. And yet. That's a topic for another panel. But yeah, and so there was no statewide sort of agriculture insurance agency. So we had a really hard time, and we for a little while we had to just have sort of normal general liability insurance, which was way more expensive than what we should have been paying. Eventually, we've been able to work it out, but I think that definitely needs to be looked at, and it just needs to be clarified more, because especially on rooftops, I mean, you can only imagine what an insurance company comes back to us and says, and the questions they have. So, and I think that that really just comes with time and more businesses pushing the envelope with them.
Great. A lot of fodder for conversation over lunch. We've got one more session before we break. I'd like to thank my panel.